Folks, welcome to our international podcast, Below the Belt. Who vex lose? Who vex? It's y'all face. We out here, peoples. We out here, and welcome to each and every one of you. First and foremost, we want to know that you guys are hearing us crystal clear. So let us know that you guys are hearing us. We want no problems today. We got a lot of things to talk about, people. Y'all don't know what we're talking about. Beatrice Selby, good to see you folks. And Siobhan McDonald, good to see you as well. Good to see each and every one of you, wherever you beautiful, fantastic people are joining us from around the world. We're so happy that you guys are here. Trust that you guys have had a fantastic, restful weekend, like the rest of us. Like the rest of us. Folks, we're going to have some guys stopping by. Y'all know what we're talking about is the talk of the tongue. It's showtime, people. It's showtime. Good to see Dora, David, and George. Is it Nurk? Gotta pronounce this. Gotta know how to pronounce this. Yvonne Ramastar, and I see all the other guys are joining us. Is it Kirk or N Kirk? I hope I'm pronouncing it right, George. Respect and manners. Sabina Jacobs is here as well. Tessa Isaacs, Graves Sandy, and Paula Mattis. Dora David is here too, and Winston Henry, and all the other lovely folks like Shirley and Juice Tendry, Simone Phillips, and all the other guys. Guys, really, really happy to see you. And as our guests come into the green room or virtual studio, we're gonna ask them to just mute it there, and we're gonna have them in shortly, guys. But good to see each and every one of you. And I want you all know, because of the topic we're discussing this afternoon, I have walked with my lawyers, folks. I've lawyered up. I have lawyered up. I sure that you guys are great. Wherever you folks are joining us from, it is our distinct privilege to be joining you from the national capital city of Georgetown, Guyana, where we broadcast live from, folks. How is the weather on your side of the Atlantic? And I'm going to tell you guys how the weather is. Where we there? I can tell you, without even the asking, guys. It's good weather outside, but it might change. It might change based on what weather.com is telling us. Let's take a check of the forecast and do let us know where you guys are joining us from and what is the weather where you are. It's 29 degrees outside. That's what weather.com is telling us. 29 degrees outside. I feel hot, folks. I feel hot. As a matter of fact, they said it's 29 degrees outside, but it feels like 34. It feels like 34. It feels like 34 indeed. It feels like 34. They're telling us there's a 55% chance. There's a 50% chance that it's going to rain. 55% chance it's going to rain into the afternoon, and that decreases overnight. So I guess you don't have much to worry about, and it's brilliant sunshine outside at the moment. At the moment, it's good sunshine outside. Good sunshine outside, folks. So we're gonna be watching that. Good to have each and every one of you here with us, guys. Couldn't have it any other way. Good to have you folks. How have you guys been keeping? How have you folks been keeping without me? Well, hey, we outside. Good to see you, lovely folks. Hope you guys are great. Hope you guys are having a wonderful, fantastic time. And great to see each and every one of you. I just wish to know where this little song is coming from. We're going to find out, guys. But good to have you folks. How are you guys doing? We ain't got to ask you guys to share. We ain't got to ask you guys to smash the emoji button. I hope not. We don't have to ask you guys to partner with us, because you know the drill. Rock and come in. Jenny's Booker. Anjali Abrams. I see Audrey Winter is here. I see Dion Mitchell is here as well. Oren Stevens, Lisa Pitt, Glycis Mingo, Pern, and all the others. Well, I want to tell y'all, put y'all seat up in an upright position. Put on your seat belts, guys. Put away your trays. Come on now. We're about to take off. Put your seat in an upright position. Come on, folks. Come out the washrooms. Come out. Take a seat. Pull your chairs in an upright position. Put away the trays. Come on, folks. Oh, yeah, I think it was a working lunch. We're getting ready to lift off. I am so privileged to have with me, guys. Look how I can give y'all, icing on the cake before you even have the cake. plus the cherry on top. Plus the cherry on top. Chinese Booker, we see you. Edward Gonzalez, we see you as well. And we see Colin Alexander, we see Alex Boom, we see Dara David is here. Dara says she missed me bad. I miss back to you bad too, Dara. I miss back to you, Dara. Real bad. Folks, I am privileged. Privileged. I'm privileged to have with me in studio today Senior Counsel Roycedale Ford. See, y'all know well 45. Senior Counsel Roycedale Ford, a well fortified, folks. Guyana for sale, money got for Mac. Money got for Mac. Also privileged to have another attorney joining my team, Amanda Walton Desire, joining as well. And folks, I let you know that Roycedale is our shadow minister for legal affairs, at Shadow Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Roycedale Ford, Senior Counsel. Please and thank you, Amanda Walton Desire. She is our Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. And if you, I'll give you a little cherry on top now. the one and only, young fella, right? Young fella, but he has a lot of institutional knowledge where politics is concerned in this great country of ours. Our parliamentary opposition chief whip, Christopher Jones, is joining us as well on the broadcast. Folks, perhaps in that order, welcome. Who vex lose? Be outside. I look extra.
Good afternoon, Sharon, and thank you for having me. Good afternoon, guys.
Hi, good afternoon, Sherrod. Good afternoon to your audience. Good afternoon, Amanza and Chris.
Good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon, Sharon and the panel. Good afternoon, listeners from around the world.
I wanted the guys to know we've lawyered up. We have the best representation here. We come out to fight. folks, we had such a big weekend. And I think years from now, we're going to look back and say, where were you when X happened, when Y happened? Guys, can you hear our guests? Let us know if you're hearing our guests. Please and thank you before we get on the way. We don't want to waste a word and have to talk over. Let us know you are hearing our guests. Folks, please, I'm waiting for that. Let us know. Let me know that you're hearing all three of our guests. Crystal clear. I see Wilma Grant joining us from Brooklyn, New York. I see Jean Williams says pace and power. Sheila Hazel is here in Wilton Blue. Paulette Hicks is here as well. Nicole Telford says loud and clear. Loud and clear. Folks, panelists, Christopher, Amanda, Roycedale, we knew what was coming. We saw the initial posting. The Vice President, Mr. Jagdio, took first jump. As we see, took first jump, put out part of the interview by international journalist Isabel Young of Vice News. That piece, he put out that piece very early, trying to get ahead of what he knew was coming. Last evening, Showtime premiered the Vice News mini documentary, Guyana for Sale. And those revelations, my oh my, I don't want to preface what you guys are going to say, but give me your initial reaction. Starting with Senior Counsel, I'll take Amanda and then I'll take Chris. Your initial reactions to what you would have heard and witnessed.
Sherrod, I, after listening to and watching the recording from Showtime, I felt compelled to immediately issue a statement because it was very disturbing. I felt that it was some serious and damning revelations, and it was quite explosive. I believe what was revealed in the documentary is sufficient to require the immediate resignation of Bara Jagdeo and the establishment of a proper, directed, and independently driven commission of inquiry. I believe what came out of the documentary shows that really and truly that Guyana is up for sale. It shows that we have politicians who are disposed to probably utilizing government office for particular gains, for friends and families. And I believe that it is very disturbing. It certainly requires comment by all of us who are in Parliament and comments by the National Assembly as a whole, civil society and the citizenry throughout the country. I believe it points to a breakdown of the underlying morality that governs public affairs in Guyana. And we are in a very bad place.
In a bad place indeed. In a bad place indeed. Amanza, jumping right there.
Well, Sharon, again, good afternoon. I think the documentary simply confirms what most Guyanese already know, that the PPPC administration, and particularly the vice president, runs a kleptocratic dictatorship. And what we are seeing there is confirmation of what we already know, that they are corrupt, that they are only focused on enriching friends and family. From the vice president's own utterances, it is only Sue is his friend, so Sue gets all of the support, bearing out what we continuously say, that you have to be friends and family to be supported by the PPP-C administration. So I, like Roysdale, believe that it warrants the immediate resignation of the vice president. Any public official with a modicum of with a modicum of decency would have immediately tendered his resignation to the president. It is disturbing, and I'm sure we will go into it more, but I believe that it is sufficient for the vice president to say immediately he is stepping down from performing the functions of vice president. It is certainly the least that he can do in the face of all of these in the face of the release that we saw.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Excellent. Christopher Jones, jump in there. Parliamentary
No,
Opposition
thank
Chief
you.
Whip.
Thank you very much, Sherrod. For me, as you mentioned in your opening introductory remarks, that essentially I've been been a part of the hostings of the country for a number of years. So for me, when I saw the documentary, the only thing came to mind was that, well, it's Barra Jagdeo again, because it is nothing new. It is only this time around he has been caught on tape, and more so, it was an in-depth investigation by a renowned journalist, of which they had someone who posed as an undercover Chinese businessman, and all this has been caught on both video and audio. But if you go back in time, as it relates to Bharat Jagdeo under his administration when he served as president, you will need to go to the US State Department report on Guyana as it relates to corruption. You would need to go to the US State Department report as it relates to Guyana and the drug trade. You would need to go back to the US State Department report on Bharat Jagdeo and his association with known drug barons, and the list goes on. So for me, it is just Bharat Jagdeo again. Essentially, Vice News has revealed somewhat of a Victoria's Secret, of which, as Amanzo Walton Desir said, everybody knows.
Mm-hmm,
Everybody in this country knows the association of Bharat Jagdeo and the People's Progressive Party Civic as it relates to corruption of at the highest level. Vice News just had the opportunity to expose it, and they have it on tape and video. So for me, it is just Bharat Jagdeo again. It is nothing new.
excellent. Amanza kind of prefaced made a foray into my other question. In this interview, we see, as Christopher articulated, the Chinese businessman posing Jagdeo at Jagdeo's sprawling estate. One wonders how many other businessmen traverse in and out of there. Sue seems to have evolved since the last time Jagdeo spoke about him as just a tenant. He is now a friend and clearly a middleman, in which Jagdeo says that Sue is his friend. He is evolved from just tenant. He's my friend, and he has all the support. He has all, not some, not a little bit, based on criteria for corporations and businesses or what have you. Whoever Sue brings, he has all our support. What did you take that to mean? Beyond the obvious.
Sherrod,
Yes, Royce, go ahead.
whilst I agree with Amanza and Chris, that the recording really confirms what we all know about the PPP and what people have heard people say about Mr. Jaglio. Um, it actually has, in my opinion, a new dimension to it. And the dimension that I would like us to point and recognize is that it has the dimension that we are now an oil economy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is happening, this open sort of trading and commercial mercantile activity in relation to the assets of the state or the patrimony of the country is extremely worrying within the context of an oil economy, within the context of the interest, the international interests of all sorts of businessmen, legitimate businessmen, rogues and vagabonds and bandits who would want to come and invest in this country. We see the rise of and the documentation in this report, this documentary, of the intervention and the activities of middlemen. We see the sophistication in which it is no longer considered a bribe. And maybe if the reporter had actually asked Mr. Jagdeo whether he receives consultancy fees, maybe we would have had a different answer. Because it is no longer seen to be a bribe. It's no longer seen to be conditioned as a bribe. Mm-hmm. And I believe that these are the new features which emerge from our understanding of what traditionally transferred or happened some time ago. So we see a transference and a sophistication, a sort of refinement in certain activities which should be rejected by the society at large.
Yep. Amanzo Chris. Again, here is Starbucks News. Rather, this is Kaicho News this morning saying that on the same question that foreigners know how to get things done because they know which buttons to push. This is the editorial, Kaicho News, and which leaders can make good things happen. They know what it takes to move men in influential leadership positions to see their objectives and respond to their bids. The currency of such conversation is cash and lots of it. Mr. Su has plenty of it, and he is familiar with Guyana's own vice president, who is his landlord and, more tellingly, his boss. We ponder about the meaning that could be attached to that very useful word, boss. Vice President Jagdeo has not denied knowing Mr. Su, who is one clever operator, given his large land holdings in Guyana. Yep. Interesting. Chris Amanzo.
Sherrod, it's interesting indeed. And if one looks at the documentary and you are an observer of body language, etc., you will see that all Sue was doing is what he was accustomed to doing. He strolled up into the VP's house because that is the usual business. He could open the door and go in because that is what he is accustomed to doing.
Sue had his SOPs.
For me, he had his standard operating procedures. Yes, so this was nothing unusual or out of the ordinary, which is why the vice president was you see him being guarded enough to say that, he doesn't talk business, but you also hear him saying that Sue takes care of the business. Yep. Sue handles all of the contracts. For me, Sherrod, you'll recall we have had many discussions on this program where I often lament the breakdown of our institutions and the deliberate undermining of our institutions. And I have put out something where I speak to this because you will recall that when this story first broke and Jagdeo tried to get ahead of it, he put himself out there as facilitating investment, etc. It raises the question then, what is the mandate of the Go Invest? There is a law that sets up an institution, and Section 39 of that law says that the Guyana Office for Investment, established under the Public Corporations Act of 1988, shall be the corporation responsible for facilitating and promoting investment in Guyana. Why then is it necessary for investors to be taken to the vice president's private residence? And why is Sue getting all of the support? Does Sue hold a portfolio in the government? Has Sue been given a mandate by the people of Guyana to look after these agreements? And if Sue looks after the agreements, what is the role of the chief legal advisor to the government, the attorney general? And so this has far reaching implications for the functioning of our institutions. Because when you whittle away at our institutions and you set yourself up as the power center, this is what results: kleptocracy and a country being put up for sale and for barter at the whims and fancies of these men. What is telling to me also is the silence of the defenders and guardians of democracy, the silence of the usually very verbose public, the PSC, Private Sector Commission. Everybody has gone quiet. Let this scandal would have been about somebody from the AP and UAFC overnight. You would have seen calls from all of the chambers of commerce, everybody. But the reality is that all of them have benefited maybe from this type of dealing, and so are now in a position where they cannot necessarily comment. This is dangerous, Sherrod. It is a dangerous development. Our institutions are being undermined. And when you undermine your institutions, you are undermining democracy in your society. And you are heading down the road to an autocracy and a dictatorship. Peter Ramsarup should probably go home.
Because he's wasting time.
And the super salary that he's getting, go to some other deserving public servant. Because clearly he plays no role.
And Amanzo, Chris, and Roysdale, here is a member of the public, Nicole Chelford, asking the question: why is a friend of Jagdeo doing government business? Why are government officials not doing the legitimate work of Guyana? Chris?
You know, on the same note that the man's touched on in terms of the private sector commission, I too, in fact, this morning when I woke up and I was checking the dailies, I was actually looking to see statements from the private sector commission and the various chambers of commerce and those very guardians of democracy speaking out on this. And the absence of any pronouncement from them, to me, is not surprising. And rightfully, as Amanda said, is that many of them are complicit. Many persons in the private sector commission and those persons, private sector members, those so-called businessmen and businesswomen out there in Guyana that operates in this country, benefited from the same transaction that Sue was doing on behalf of the Chinese businessman who was undercover. So many of them can't speak now. They cannot speak because Jaglio got the bag. Jaglio got stories on them, and similarly, they got stories on him. So none of them will speak. And that is why you had, as Mansa mentioned, a ferocious private sector commission and chamber of commerce during the APNU AFC administration. Because during that period, ain't got no businessman could turn up by David Granger's house with somebody who telling Granger that they want this land and he will make it available to them and that sort of thing. And because they were not able to conduct their business the manner in which they were accustomed to doing under the PPP's administration, and more so Barra Jagdeo, they found issues with the APNU AFC government because it was not a government that deals in corruption or part and parcel of any corrupt practice. And that is why now that you have this glaring evidence before you, it's on audio, it's on videotape with Jagdeo caught with his pants down. And when you expect all of these organizations and bodies and individuals would have been out there and said that, listen, this is the time for an international independent investigation into these allegations, and they call upon the vice president to demit office until such an investigation is done. You wouldn't see that from them. They can't, because they too benefited from that. And just to take you even further back, I mean, Roysdale made the point that now it is Guyana, an oil producing country. And it makes it somewhat different from the type of corruption that Jagdeo has always been associated with under his administration. And I was on programs like this before, and I made mention what used to happen to certain businessmen when they speak out about corruption under Jagdeo's administration at that time. Jagdeo would send the Guyana Revenue Authority at that time to those businesses and claim that they have so much outstanding back payments and failure to do which the businesses are shut down. I've been a part of meetings with the then opposition leader Robert Corbyn, in which you had businessmen who had thriving businesses along Regent Street, Robb Street, and you name it, all parts of this country, that they had to literally sneak into Congress Place 2:30 a.m. and 3:30 a.m. in the morning to meet privately with the then opposition leader Robert Corbyn to share some of the issues and problems that they're faced with under the Jagdeo administration. Many of them sold out their entire businesses and fled this country with their families to avoid prosecution under the then Jagdeo administration. So it is nothing new with Bharat Jagdeo. This is the norm. And a lot of those businessmen, as we rightfully mentioned, who are out there right now enjoying the wealth of this country, it is as a result of their association and their dealings and transactions with Bharat Jagdeo.
In this very manner,
Sherrod,
jump in, Royce.
sure, I would like to support what Chris and Amanda is saying, but I'd just like to point out to the public that Sue was not doing government of Guyana work. He was not working on behalf of the people of Guyana. Sue was doing what people generally refer to as a middleman business, in which, in the meeting as recorded in the documentary, Mr. Jagdeo said that he deals with the government side of things. This wasn't a joint venture with the government of Guyana, in which the government of Guyana was going to be benefiting in any way. This is a private enterprise, a private transaction, in which he's saying that he represents the government side. Yep. How could he represent any government side in any transaction with any person that Sue is bringing directly to him? The whole thing is preposterous.
Yep. And you know, as we're on this tenor, senior veteran journalist Nazima Raghubir, no hint at her age there, I want to get in any trouble, but Nazima says on Twitter just this morning, look how normal it is for a sitting official, a constitutional office holder, to do a potential investment meeting in his home with foreign investment, when foreign investment rather is not even covered in his portfolio.
That is exactly the point that I'm making. And now we're in an oil economy. Sherrod, the Guyanese people could really fathom. I want them to really take some time and really think through this thing. The range of possibilities, the range and breadth of such meetings are endless.
Who went
it's
before
indeterminable.
And who
The
was
type
to
of
follow? In terms of meetings, who else traversed Pradoville to see Jagdeo on missions like this? Who followed Sinsu? And perhaps who have been lined up and might now cancel? Amanda, Chris?
Sherrod, the whole, and this is why the questions have to be asked, because it leads you to the exact conclusion that Roysdale just stated, that this is clearly a private transaction. It is clear that the vice president considers Guyana to be his personal property, that he could barter off and trade off at his private residence at will. Yep. So this is why you're asking, so what is Sue's, Who's Sue acting on behalf of? If you take care of the government side and Sue takes care of all of the agreements, what is Sue's mandate? Is he a representative of all of the investors, or what exactly is it?
Mhm.
And so, in seeking to explain away this, they are creating more questions than they're answering.
Well, he said Sue
And
is a tenant.
yeah, but you see, what is important is that the people remember that before Jagdeo understood or realized that there was footage of himself at a meeting with these people, that he said Sue was his friend, is a tenant.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
He did not know that these people had him on tape saying that Sue handles all of the agreements.
Mhm.
And so for that alone,
It's a tenant with a lot
he
of
should he
responsibilities.
should he should step aside for that alone,
Mhm.
because he denied and
He
misrepresented
lied, the man, sir.
the
He lied
extent.
Well,
to the country.
He
well,
lied
well,
and misrepresented the extent of his relationship with Sue.
Yep.
Sue also did not realize that he was being recorded, etc. And said, no, he never said that. But here you are on tape saying that.
Mhm.
So they have been caught red-handed, I believe, and a senior counsel say he should resign. I mean, it is the only decent thing to do, and to allow for an impartial investigation into all of this. We must understand what Sue's role is in terms of brokering arrangements, etc. That is the only thing that would restore a modicum of decency.
and in addition to what Amanza would have said, Mr. Jagdeo has to come clean and tell us how many of these transactions he had with Sue
Mhm.
and what were the nature of the transactions and
Mhm.
what other transactions similarly he had with other people
Mhm.
that did not form part of any formal government structure. And one thing that he was very truthful about is that he has an open door policy. The door to his own home is open.
Father,
Uh, y-
Chris,
Sharon, let me jump in here right
jump in,
now.
Chris.
And I want to, well, not necessarily caution us, but rather remind us or remind the nation, because at times we seem to forget things of the past very quickly. And especially, we're making the call for an impartial, independent investigation. I think the emphasis should be placed on international, as in persons from abroad coming to do any investigations here in Guyana.
And
Because,
credible persons from abroad, Chris.
and credible persons, correct. Because I take you back to when we had the Phantom Death Squad in operations in Guyana. And there was calls by the joint opposition political parties at that time calling for an independent investigation into these allegations, etc., etc. And the then President Jagdeo announced a setting up of a three-man committee to spearhead such an investigation and to seek the to reveal whether or not there is any government involvement. I don't have to remind you of who were the individuals who were identified to conduct such an inquest and an investigation. But within a few weeks, they found that there is no evidence linking the government. And that was the end of the impartial investigation. So I want to remind us about that and the PPP's track record when it comes to asking them to appoint a committee to investigate and so forth. They identified they identify persons who they already know what the outcome will be, and they put them out there, and then the report comes out and it goes internationally. It goes to the ABCE countries to satisfy them that look, this was done, and they plaster it all over the local media and so forth. That's the end of it. That's what the PPP does. So let us not be taken by surprise if we hear from Irfan Ali such a pronouncement about a committee being comprised to do an investigation to see whether or not vice president is involved in corrupt practices and so forth, because we already know what the outcome will be.
Mhm.
Just to caution us on that.
Yep, yep, yep. folks, we do not operate as a country in a vacuum. We're a country with international partners. We got neighbors. Just recently, the vice president said Trinidad is falling apart. It seems like as though the vice president himself is falling apart now instead. We got Suriname and Santoki. We got Trinidad and Rowley. We got Barbados and Mia Motley. We got Antigua and Barbuda and Gaston Brown. We got St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonzalez, and you name it, Dominica and Skerrit, all of these countries, regional partners, international partners, they're waking up to this. Somebody's alerting them to this. Their foreign affairs minister, friends and family alerting them to what's happening here. They've just left an Agri Expo here, International Agri Expo, among other things. What do you think they are thinking, and having engaged this information when they do should be their posture moving forward with this administration?
Quickly for me, I would just want to jump in that. Listen, I would like to hear or see or know the reaction of the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mayor Motley, because Mayor Motley is on record numerous occasions referring to Barrett Jagdeo as her big brother, right? So I would love to hear. Well, if she's going to say that now, or if she's going to be that one head of state who she's known to be across the Caribbean and wider field as being one that outstands, a shining one. If she would echo the sentiments and call for an investigation and ask her big brother, Vice President Jagdeo, to demit office to allow such an investigation. So for me, my eyes are set on the Prime Minister, Mayor Motley of Barbados. I want to hear her reaction to this investigation or news item by Vice News as it relates to her big brother, Vice President Jagdeo.
Very well. Very well. Amanda? Royce did? Very well.
Go ahead, Roy.
Thanks. Sherrod, all I will wish to say is that I've observed that Miss Motley has continued to, at least outwardly, develop a very close relationship with the current actors in this regime. And I would like to say publicly, as a Guyanese citizen and as a member of parliament, that I believe that Miss Motley is doing herself and her personal reputation and that of her new republic a disservice by continuing to fraternize beyond the minimum requirements necessary in relation to them. I believe that her personal reputation, she's just being made or announced to be one of the influential persons, not just a woman, person in the world. And I believe that she ought to exercise a greater degree of caution, especially in light of what is unfolding here and what will continue to unfold. Because I have had some information, and I will not ever reveal the source, that what we saw yesterday is not the end. It is for a mere first part.
Well, I was coming there. I was coming this. I know why Royce is peeping the cards here. Great ahead.
A peep in your share, a peep in you.
Great ahead.
Yep, Amanza, sorry. You go ahead.
The question I was going to ask as Amanza come in is whether we thought this was it, because Vice News is not known to go halfway, and there was a bribe that was being proposed. One do not get the sense that the bribe was actually paid, and so people think that there, as Royce was proffering there, as a part 2 to Guyana for Sale, in which you might see even more revelations coming out as to the nature of some of these activities. I note one social media commentator suddenly came out this morning to say he has been dealing with Vice News since January. They've been in contact with him. He has met with them. Suddenly, he didn't talk in all the time. Suddenly, this specific social media commentator who has a lot of time for the vice president, right? And who has a lot of other weighty matters he's been dealing with lately. He's come out to say, for what he said, for transparency, so all of a sudden, right? And he has revealed several text messages on his phone and voice notes and so on, that he has been a guide, per se, to Vice News. Very interesting times. folks?
Sharon, it's indeed interesting. And I suspect, given the footage that I saw during the 15-minute special, that there is much more available than we have seen so far.
Mhm.
So I suspect that there will be more to come. Um, and particularly because the way these things operate, they kind of wait for your reaction to see how far you will go and then present to you the evidence that they have. So it is going to be very interesting looking forward. I look forward as well to see how this is handled by the the international community in terms of particularly those countries that speak about transparency and so on and so forth as to how they handle this. The cocktail of oil and corruption is one that is well known around the world to induce some serious problems within developing nations. And so I look forward to hearing and seeing the reactions over the coming days. But more importantly, Sharon, I look forward to seeing how the Guyanese people will respond to this. The question arises, will it be business as usual? Will this be an instance where the story is salacious for the first few mornings and then we go back to being what we always are, consumed with our day-to-day existence and not putting pressure where pressure needs to be applied? Um, the concern that I have is that we must receive the message loud and clear that it cannot be business as usual. Guyana seems to be up for sale, whilst Guyanese are struggling to get a house lot, are struggling to be able to build homes, etc. And that ought not to be the case. Every Guyanese must first be able to enjoy Guyana's patrimony. Instead, what we see and what has been confirmed is that unless you are a friend, you get no support. Who is my friend? Who gets all the support is what the vice president has said.
Yep.
So
And
that is where the burning question is. What are we as a people, as a nation, going to do about it? Because Sherrod, this whole scenario will occasion a very important question for every Guyanese. And this is not just about the opposition, etc. It is about every Guyanese. Our reaction to this will convey very clearly to the world whether we want to build a nation of laws or we want to be a nation of laws and a nation that subscribes to rule of law, transparency, etc., or whether we are content to do what the man in the video said, be corrupt, be all about money, and express surprise when people are not corrupt in Guyana. That is a damning indictment on our nation.
Indeed.
I, as a Guyanese, am personally offended that a foreigner would say that everything is all about the money and nothing is done above board. Everything has to be done on the board. What is that? And why are we not deeply offended by those sentiments? Why are we accepting that that has to be the way things must be?
and
Somebody
I
Mm,
would like to add, Sharon,
go right ahead.
to what Amanda is saying. Um, Another disturbing feature of what came out, which we know, you know, the greatest thing about this documentary has been the illumination that it has brought to the dark passageways and to the areas in which we would not ordinarily, and the average Guyanese li- living in Blackbush Polder or in the hinterland or on the Essequibo coast or in Buxton or even right here in Georgetown, they have not been allowed to before to see these corridors of power, to see these rooms of influence. They're shut out from these areas, from these activities. They're shut out from the back doors. They're shut out from the access through the certain front doors to great and powerful politicians. And these are very important issues. These are the sort of issues that propel social apathy, that propel social conflict, and in the context of our society, may even propel racial conflicts. For example, Sharon, how could this be explained? How could what we would have seen in the country and the world would have observed be explained when you have Guyanese, born Guyanese, living here that are being denied access, fair access to resources of the state?
Correct.
How could this be justified or explained in the context of a government coming to power and seeking to take back lands and properties that would have been given not to strangers, people who are born in this country,
Yep.
African Guyanese, Indian Guyanese, Amerindian people who are born here, and you sitting in your exalted living room negotiating and facilitating an open door policy, which we now learn it is underpinned by a raft of questionable dealings confessed by Sue himself in relation to facilitating investment, using that word in its most broadest and Sue type sense. How could that be explained? You shutting down, taking back licenses, preventing people from operating in this country who are born here, who have every legitimate right to remain and start a livelihood here, and you opening doors for foreign investors in the context of questionable transactions? That by itself alone, Sharon, is the reason why Mr. Jagdeo must resign. This is not about whether he took the money, whether he partake in receiving funds. It is the fact that he has allowed himself, against the best possible judgment, to be allowed himself to be put in a position in which he has been compromised. Not that he has compromised himself intentionally, but he has allowed himself to be compromised.
Yep, yep. You know, we had the first airing of this put out by Mr. Jagdo himself, trying to get ahead of this storm that is here and the storms to come. And he said in that, as a response to that first salvo, that Sue was his tenant. He was upset. Sue issued a statement in which he said he didn't say anything of this nature. He didn't talk to nobody. And for all intents and purposes, Sue continued to be a tenant of Mr. Jagdeo. Now we're hearing that Mr. Jagdeo says he's going to evict his tenant and he's going to take him to court. For what, Roysdale?
Yeah, court.
Palm court?
I want.
You go,
Could be
you go, Craig.
could be Palm Court indeed. Could be Palm Court. I want to jump in here right here on the note with Jagdeo issuing the interview just a few days after it was done to get ahead of the storm because he expects an onslaught to come his way. But I want us to just look back for the few months after that publication was aired by Jagdeo and Jagdeo's own activities throughout this country. We have seen Jagdeo in regions 2, 7, 5, 6, 10, doling out cash, 150, 200,000, all sort of story. And many persons were asking the question, is this legal? Was this something a part of the budget allocation for the year and so forth? No answer could be given. But just Jagdeo suddenly became Santa Claus and sharing gifts and so forth. So right now, if Jagdeo goes in those regions that I mentioned, it's like Santa Claus coming. Oh, this is a good man. He give me 150,000, give me 200,000, and so forth. And Jaglio's modus operandi over the last few months somewhat reminds me of an individual in Jamaica who is now a guest of the United States government, and that is Christopher Dudas Coke. And you would recall in the particular province of Jamaica that he reside, Dudas Coke was dubbed as the Godfather, the Santa Claus. He buying gifts, he giving out this, he repairing the, and so forth and so forth. So when the authorities came for him, you had that entire province was standing in defense of the man and so forth. I rather suspect that there was method in Jaglio's madness over the past few months when you saw him in all of those regions giving out 150,000, 200,000 to folks and so forth, because he wanted to build that same sort of relationship with the people. So now that the storm is here, you have all of these people who benefited when Jaglio went flouncing around in all of those regions will come as shield to him. Oh man, does war. Jaglio's a good man. Look, because I get this 200,000, I get this 150, and so forth. So there was method to Jaglio's madness when he was doing this.
He thieving, but
Sorry?
at least he's thieving, but at least he giving us something.
Exactly. So there was method to Jaglio's madness. All this was a part to get ahead of the storm and the onslaught that will come. So when you expect to see citizens in various parts of this country reacting to these revelations and so forth, you will have half of the population in a particular region who benefited, like many of those so-called businessmen who part of the private sector commission and private sector members and the chambers of commerce in the various regions who would have benefited, similar to those Guyanese who received the 150, the 200 and so forth. You would see all of them being very mute, having nothing to say, and just to let this storm pass so that Santa Claus would remain. And hopefully in the next few weeks, there will be a next disbursement of resources to them. That is what's happened. So there was method to Jaglio's madness in what he was doing over the past couple of months.
Chris, you're absolutely right. But I just want the public to know that what Jaglio was sharing out was not money that could ever possibly have been sourced by any activity undertaken by Sue. That the money that Jaglio would have been sharing out, the 150, the 250 and so on, is money that they're entitled to. It is the state resources. It is the oil money from the Natural Resource Fund. It's their right to get what is being shared out. They're not begging for it, and they don't have to grovel for it. They don't have to go on the knees and roll over and beg for it. They don't have to jump like a dog for it. It is theirs as of right. So if they're sharing it out, take it. But on the other hand, understand who is the person that's doing the sharing out. And Chris, your example about the man Dudas is very interesting, because I believe at the same time what happened is that Dudas end up implicating the Honorable Prime Minister of Jamaica, Bruce Golden. So what we have happening here is the tripartite arrangement and a tripartite situation where three different features are bubbling up together. It is the Santa Claus element, is the public office element, and the corrupt suit type element, all being blended into one person.
Yep. You know, as we wrap up, guys, Amanda talked early on about what are the Guyanese people going to do about this. We're angry that you have such people who are now in a documented way corrupt and will stop at nothing, right? They got a lot of money already and property and assets, but they want more. They're corrupt. what should be the posture of Guyanese people? If I don't know what I should do, hearing this, engaging this information, what should be the posture of the average Guyanese? Amanza, Chris, Roysdale, as we wrap up.
They should at minimum be calling for Barjagdio's resignation. How can he be emblematic of the modus operandi of government in Guyana? How is that acceptable? And they must be willing to mobilize when called upon to so do. Wait, this is serious business. This is very serious business. We are not at liberty to be like the proverbial ostrich and bury our heads in the sand. But I will say this, Sherrod. You will see over the coming days the reaction, and right now people are very quiet because the usual suspects, the usual guardians of democracy are very quiet because their concern is how do they disentangle themselves from this? Because I guarantee you one thing, if Barjagdio goes down, he will not go down quietly into the good night. And so you are going to see men being very cautious about their utterances. You are going to see a slew of distractions over the next coming days. This will be announced and that will be announced, and public servants may even get their increase that they've been denied for the last 3 budgets.
Yes.
Right? A lot of things are going to happen. You're going to see a lot of fake news being generated about opposition MPs in an attempt to tarnish our reputations. That is their classic playbook. So because we come out and we speak about it, you are going to see over the next few days, their trolls will be in overdrive. And that is what is to be expected. I will be shocked and pleasantly so if Irfan Ali exercises some degree of fortitude and a statement is put out that I have accepted the resignation of the vice president. That will shock me. It will take me some time to recover. But I do not expect to see that. Because again, I hope that we can face what is a defining moment in our nation's history in a manner that our coming generations will be proud of us. That we put we foot down here and we decided, okay, enough is enough. We are turning a new leaf. We want to build a Guyana where there's equitable access to resources, where hardworking public servants don't have to languish whilst these rogues and vagabonds make off like bandits. That Guyanese rank and file don't have to wonder where their next meal is coming from, whilst a Chinese national can stroll into the vice president's residence to transact business and to deal away the patrimony of Guyanese. Enough is enough now. Enough is enough.
Indeed.
And so the opposition has to play their role, and every Guyanese have to play their role. Labor, I expect to see them saying something about this. I expect all of the civil society, all of them that had something to say when you put out a jingle that was already out there, all of them must now find their voices and speak. Because if they fail to speak now, they would have impugned their legitimacy. They would have lost the right to talk on any other matter. Because this is arguably the greatest scandal in governance history in Guyana.
Yeah.
And if you don't have something to say now, you disqualify yourself from speaking.
Yep. And the Guyanese people can ask, as Irfan Ali asked, where were you during X time? The time of this of Sugate. Where were you and what did you say? Christopher? Roysdale?
Listen, Manza hit all of the nails on the head, but just for me to iterate that you will see a flurry of niceties that will come from the People's Progressive Party in the coming days and the coming weeks. And I think indeed one such would be that public servants will receive an increase in wages and salaries. That in itself will shut down the unions from speaking altogether. That in itself will kind of null or make mute many of the public servants who are crying out for an investigation to be launched. So we got to look out for that. Indeed, because that is what they do. As a man just said, that is their playbook. That's how the people operate. You understand me? You would see they may announce $100,000 one-off cash grant for every single Guyanese in the coming weeks and so forth. All of that to nullify, to make light of this Jaglio documentary that has been made public. Similar to, I too look forward to hearing from those same organizations. And as Manza said, if they fail to speak now, forever hold your peace.
That's right.
Because we have seen them jump out and about on some somewhat minor matters, but yet still they have a right to express their concerns on those matters that I consider minor. But this, this involves the vice president, and it's not hearsay. Is he saying it himself in his house, on video and audio,
Yep.
and you have nothing to say about that? I look forward to hearing from the president. And now we will have an opportunity to find out who really is the president of the country. Because you ask the average Guyanese, they will tell you President Jagdio and second in command, Irfan Ali. So we want to see really now who is really the president. And if indeed Irfan Ali is president, and he will ask for Jagdio's resignation. And as I mentioned earlier before, and I want to say it again, I look forward to hearing from Prime Minister Mia Mottley, because this is her big brother, according to her. I am pretty certain right now the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is having a glass of water and he minding your own business. Because I'll talk half and leave the other half for Roysdale.
Senior counsel.
So, Sherrod, I believe my distinguished colleagues have said all that I wanted to say. But it's just one or 2 points I want to make quickly. I believe that the government will go overdrive and try to share out stuff. But, when will the political abuse of the Guyanese people come to an end? When will the Guyanese people say that you cannot do what you want to do to us and then come back and pay us off with our own money? The Guyanese people will have to stand up for this and to stop it. They'll have to stand up and make it clear to the nation, for future generations, to politicians, that this sort of behavior is unacceptable. Chris, and Amanza and Sherrod, in any democratic society that is sane, which is sane and focused, an incident like this will result in the person having to resign. And to the extent that the government embraces that person, they are punished by the populace and punished by the electorate. There are local government elections coming. There's a national and regional elections coming. You are the true bosses of every politician in this country.
Correct.
You determine the conditions under which you live as a result of the people that you put in power. And this is a test case for the Guyanese people to determine whether they will punish the PPP and punish Barra Jagdio if they do not deal with this situation once and for all.
Yeah. Very well. And well said. Well said. Senior Counsel Roysdale Ford, Attorney at Law Mansa Walton, Desire Parliamentary Opposition, Chief Whip Christopher Jones, Member Parliament, all. Folks, I really want to thank you guys for joining the podcast today and lending so much insight to this very, very damning issue of the Vice News mini documentary, Guyana for Sale. Thanks for joining us today, guys.
Thanks for having us, Sharon. Have a good afternoon, guys.
Welcome,
Thank you.
Sharon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. folks, as you know, Royce Ford is our shadow Minister for Legal Affairs and the Shadow Attorney General as well. Shadow Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs. Amanzo Walton Desir is our Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. And as I've said, Christopher Jones is our Parliamentary Opposition Chief Whip in the National Assembly. All hold those portfolios very ably, folks, and we were so privileged to have them on our podcast today. That's our time. That's our program, guys. We were so especially grateful that you folks showed up today. Carol Roberts and Glycis Mingo Byrne and Whiskey Session. We were happy that Leonard Jacobs was here and Fidel Albert and again Leonard Jacobs. Natasha Singh Lewis is here as well. Good to see you. And Hyacinth Skeet is here. Guys, we're happy that Sadie is here as well. Isabella Butters and all you other great, lovely folks. We are happy that you guys chose to join us today. You know, we can't do this work without you folks. Ensure you share the damn live. Smash the emoji button. Partner with us. And let me go down the road, guys. We're available via Zelle, via PayPal. You know, we're available also via Cash App, via MMG. Available also via MoneyGram and Western Union. Folks, we totally public funded. That means by you the folks to talk the things, folks. We out here, we outside, people. Good to have you guys here with us. Marilyn Thomas and Tanya Cummins and Terrence Beaton and Wendy Rowland. Good to have you, Roberto Ray and Yvonne Ramos and Ingrid King. Good to see you, Bella Mona, guys. Great to be back and great to have all of you with us as well. Have a fantastic rest of the afternoon. We're in the ring at 8, folks. We in the ring at 8. It's going to go down live at 8. Thanks for joining us, folks. Great to have each and every one of you. Stay safe, guys. Stay safe. We see you guys back at 8. Stay safe.